Okay, the embattled farmers at Lexington Green and at Concord Bridge is the 247th anniversary of the beginning, the trigger point of the American Revolution today. Good news is the 250th anniversary of this, Donald J. Trump will be celebrating it up in Concord in Lexington with a ceremony. That is off of a poem by Emerson and classical music. So just actually magnificent. And it was done in commemoration, I think in 1861, of when they put the votive stone up there, the monument at the Concord Bridge. Okay, we got a lot to get to. Boris Epshteyn is going to run shotgun with me today. We're going to talk about the calendar that we've promised everybody, Boris. Today we're actually going to get to it, the 60 Days of Pain. You know, I had Charles Herbster on the earlier hour, the first hour, on pandemic, and he's talking about President Trump's coming out to Nebraska on the 29th for a big rally out there. That's getting a little nasty out there, a little personal, as these things are wont to do. So we're going to get into all that.
That's how it rolls.
The governor that's how it rolls. Desantis throwing down hard today. We're going to get Anthony Sabatini on here to tell us about the extension. He added one more item to the special session, in addition to the redistricting massive victory that he got. He added, I think we're going to take away all of Disney's tax breaks. And, the guys back in the 50s and 60s may let them be like the Medicis, but not here. A lot to go through. Let's go. I know we're pressed for time with Congressman Andy Biggs. We asked Congressman Biggs to join us specifically all things border. They're at the tip of the spear down there in Arizona. And Congressman, there's so much going on with the Title 42 coming off. We know from Todd Bensman and the crew that on this Thursday, they're going to start this process of actually lining people up. This is an invasion of our southern border. And I happen to think and believe strongly it's going to be the first article of impeachment that is investigated by the House starting in early 2023. But Congressman Biggs, you've always been adamant about our sovereignty, about our self-determination, about our territorial integrity of the southern border. Can you get us up to speed on what's going on in Arizona, sir?
Well, Steve, Boris, it's the worst that it's ever been. And I was down there in 2019 when we had the surge and the courts stopped all of President Trump's policy. So I've been there, good times, bad times. And I want to give some context for people. 2 years ago, 9,000 people were apprehended. That means they either were arrested or surrendered illegally crossing into the Yuma sector. This year, it's about 165,000 in the first 6 months. That tells you how bad it is. The soft-sided facility in Yuma, it holds about 825 people. When I was there just last week, it had over 3,000 people in it. And, I've been up and down the border from San Diego to McAllen in the last few months. And I can tell you this, Yuma's getting hit hard. Rio Grande's getting hard. San Diego's doing 500 people a day that they're apprehending, but they also are processing 800 Ukrainians every day. And there are literally thousands of them waiting in Tijuana to come across the border. We're talking more fentanyl, more drugs of every kind. We're talking about sex trafficking, human trafficking, and really, both of you know this. This is a constitutional crisis. It's a sovereignty crisis. It's a law enforcement crisis. I mean, we're not even following the rule of law anymore. And what this administration is focusing on, believe it or not, is they want to give you Gender X on your passport. They want to give out phones with apps on it so these folks can register faster. You're going to have, instead of 8,000 to 10,000 a day coming across that we apprehend all along the border, you're going to have minimum 18,000. That's DHS's number. And you know what Secretary Mayorkas' plan is? It is to stop Title 42 from being effective. It is basically to say we're going to swiftly bring these people into the country. He wants more efficiency on the catch and release program. So imagine 500,000 plus people every month coming illegally in, that we apprehend. That doesn't even get the gotaways. That doesn't get the people on the terror watch list or the people who are members of violent criminal gangs. This is absolutely mind-bogglingly crazy. And you both know this. This is intentional. They ran on an open border. This is exactly what an open border looks like. They want to get rid of the Westphalian state. They want to basically bring all power to themselves, and they believe that this is going to give them a fresh batch of voters because they're going to work real hard to give these folks amnesty so they can vote, and then the millions of people in line to do it correctly, some of them taking 10, 12 years to get in here legally, those people are going to be at the back of the line if you try to follow the rules. But if you come in here illegally, you're going to get ahead of the line. I mean, I could just go on and give you sample after sample. We're not talking about the environmental degradation that I've seen. We're not talking about the fact that you got 40 people in Yuma on any shift that are processing these folks, and you might have 4 or 5 on the line. So you literally have hundreds of miles that are absolutely open for drug smuggling and bringing in these high-value targets, these people who come in who have malevolent intentions to the United States. You're right, Steve. I'm with you. I've already signed on to one impeachment resolution regarding the border for Joe Biden. But I also 9 months ago now, I guess, introduced articles of impeachment against Mayorkas. Mayorkas, if he had any integrity, would be resigning today because he's not doing his job. He's not keeping the United States safe.
You're a pretty tough lawyer. I want to make sure that we're not just using political rhetoric. Do you believe that there's enough here on the initiation and the exacerbation of the invasion of our country on the southern border by this illegitimate regime that we call an administration? Do you believe there's enough there to initiate hearings and investigation that would lead to articles of impeachment? Andy Biggs.
100%. And here's the way to think of this, Steve. This administration has told ICE that they cannot enforce the law. So you have 1.2 to 1.5 million people with removal orders. Mayorkas and the Biden administration, Joe Biden, have said, look, we're not going to go out and find these people, and we're not going to remove them from the country. Second thing, he has said we're going to bring people in, and we're going to violate the law. So Mayorkas has said it isn't enough that you illegally enter the country, which is, by the way, a federal crime. It's not enough that you do that for us to remove you from the country. You've got to do something else with it. So he and Joe Biden are deliberately violating the law. In my mind, that constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors. And if you have a high crime and misdemeanor, the Congress better, I say, let's follow the rules. Let's follow the Constitution. Let's do it exactly right. But let's get the investigation going. The House Judiciary Committee always starts that. That's where we need to be. I hope Congressman Jim Jordan will be that chairman of that committee, and we can get that thing going.
Congressman Biggs, I know you're a federal official and a federal officer, but you're an Arizonan first. I think this gets back to the problems everybody has with 3 November in the decertification process. Here you have a Republican attorney general and you have a Republican governor. What could they actually be doing to save the great state of Arizona and the citizens of Arizona in this invasion, sir?
Well, first of all, they need to make sure that they have a special session. They need to get money down into the Department of Public Safety. So we get our team down there and take care of that the way Texas is doing it. You need to make sure that you're funding the counties. We've got 3 great county sheriffs that are trying to fight this thing. They're filling in where the Border Patrol can't get to. We need to make sure that they're there. You know, and I will just tell you, I was briefed last week that a Border Patrol task force went out and just told people you can't come into our country, and those people turned around. We need to make sure our people are getting down there. You've got NGOs that can't handle this. You've got people being released into the communities. And if I had my druthers, if I was the governor of the state, we'd be picking them up just like Greg Abbott is. So you're not being released in the state, and we're going to take you someplace else. We're going to take you to Delaware. We're going to take you to Martha's Vineyard. We're going to take you to San Francisco. And also, I would be working with the AG's office in this state, and I would get the legislature back in for the special session. They're in session still, but I'd make it a special session, and we would focus on passing laws that would allow the state of Arizona to arrest and prosecute under our laws, because Article 4, Section 4, that says we're guaranteed freedom from invasion, is being violated by the feds. I would be making sure we have the tools legally to arrest and detain these people. And then I would be working just like you saw what Greg Abbott did. He said, we're going to work with these. So I'd be working with Sonora, and I would be working with Baja California. I'd be working with these states and saying, look, we're going to have to shut down trade with you guys. We're going to have to inspect every vehicle that comes into our state unless you agree to slow people down on the other side. There's relationships there. You can have relationships with the Mexican president, AMLO, and say, look, you're going to have to bring your National Guard back to the border and help us stop this flow. There are things that can be done at the state level, and I wish our team here would be getting on the same bus that you see DeSantis and Abbott on.
The tough stance that if we take on this border invasion, is this good politics for the hardworking Hispanic American community in Arizona? Will they be attracted to Republican candidates and MAGA candidates that take a hard line here?
It's increasingly difficult for them to stand by and watch what's happening. They're victims of this too. A lot of these people that illegally enter are released into their communities, and they have to bear the brunt of any criminal conduct, the homelessness that goes along with it, and the influx of people that go. So I think if we take a tough stand, we're not going to get everybody, but I think you're going to get a significant number of Latinos who are going to say, we have to take that stand. And I think there's a lot of people. I've talked to some of my Latino friends, and they say, look, I waited 12 years to get in this country legally. And you're letting people come in right now, and they have de facto amnesty because these guys, this administration is releasing them on a notice to report, which is effectively a parole, basically saying you can come in, you can work with this document, and you just have to call into ICE at some point, and maybe in 5, 6, 8 years, we'll get around to processing your claim, and nobody's going to show up, and they're going to ultimately get amnesty being offered by the Democrats.
Congressman Biggs, how do people follow you on social media, and how do they find out more about you, and particularly your opinions, ideas, and analysis on this invasion of our southern border?
So you can get to Truth, Twitter, or Instagram at Rep. Andy Biggs AZ, or you can get me on Facebook at Congressman Andy Biggs. And if you go to biggs.house.gov, I put out regular videos and other information about my many trips to the border and also the policies. And look me up on congress.gov, and you can see the bills that I've introduced dealing with this border issue. And we're so close to getting some of, like Yvette Harrell from New Mexico's Title 42 bill discharged. We just need a few Democrats to come on board, and we can get this thing done.
Congressman Biggs, thank you very much for joining us here in War and Battleground.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Boris, let me come back to you. Give me the politics of this. Is this, Biden is in a free fall everywhere among every demographic. This thing is so well thought through, from the taking of Title 42 off in May in the months before the super hot summer months come up to what we're here this week. They're going to start lining guys up. Todd Benson said they got this whole thing of lining the families and the children up to actually what Congressman Biggs talking about, that you're just going to have administrators sign them in on a waiver of amnesty that they report back in 5 years, and don't have to wait for a judge. It's going to waive them in. They got the turnstills. What is the politics of this? What are they seeing that you're not seeing and I'm not seeing?
Maybe it's AOC's Twitter account, Steve, but they're not seeing anything that would suggest that this is going to help Joe Biden's absolutely decrepit, pathetic, cratered poll numbers. They believe that this is not. They don't think this is going to help Democrats in the midterms. Maybe what this is their last-ditch effort. There's articles out over the last couple of days saying, "Hey, Democrats, you're done. You're dead. Just go and get some super lib stuff done and see how it plays out. Not in a couple of months, not in 2 years, but in 10, 15, 20 years." So maybe that's the hope. But here's what they're missing out on. They're missing out on the MAGA revolution that's happening with the middle class Hispanic population, the working class Hispanic population. They're missing out on the fact that Hispanics, once they're here and they're becoming here illegally, they don't vote Democrat anymore, because if you come here illegally, if you come here through a legal process like me and my family did, you're not standing there and being sympathetic or empathetic really with those who come across the border illegally and come to this country illegally. So this is another disastrous move by the Democrats. This again shows not just how marginalized they are, Steve, but also how little they understand America, how little they understand the electorate. And that is why the Democrats are predicting biblical losses in November. And we know there's going to be a major win by President Trump in 2024, as we all hope and expect that he runs for president and walks back into the White House 2025 at the latest. Here's the bottom line. The Democrats used to have a coalition, and it was working class whites, African Americans, Hispanics. They've lost all of it, Steve. They've lost all of it. Last night I was out at dinner at a great place. I'm in Florida at a great place called Andre's. And all of the staff came over to me. Hey, boys, if you're watching, how you doing? They came over to me and said, hey, Boris from War Room coming in hot. Give our best to Steve. God bless. These are, these are salt of the earth, wonderful people who are all about War Room, all about MAGA, all about President Trump. They're card-carrying members of the War Room posse, and they're not going Democrat. But if anything, them, their wives, their families, their parents, they see what's going on. They see what the Democrats are doing at the border, and they're swearing off the Democrats forever. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that this action on Title 42 could very well be another nail in the coffin of the Democratic Party. And go back to the key issue here. The 2022 should not just be a major wave, shouldn't just be a major win. This should be the death knell of the Democrat Party forever, because the American people realize what the Democrats are all about. Woke radical liberalism, completely throwing out any and all social norms and letting in anybody and everybody into our country illegally. And that just won't fly.
Before I get to Anthony Sabatini, real quickly, I got to ask you this. We had Benjamin on, and they were doing an analysis of what the folks that have come across the border in the last couple of weeks. I mean, March was a historic record. The countries of origin were Mexico, okay? Second was Ukraine. Third was Cuba. Please explain to me why we should be so outraged about Ukrainians in Mexico coming across. I mean, even the amnesty situation. You have to go to the first country and we deal with you from there, right? That would be Poland or Hungary or a country that's an ally. How do folks get to the border of North Mexico and then come across whether in San Diego, Yuma, or in the Rio Grande Valley? How does that work, Boris?
It's completely puzzling, Steve. How does somebody, right, they go from Ukraine to Mexico, and now that's where they're coming across? The flow just doesn't make any sense, Steve. But nothing about this makes sense. And the American people need to realize this here and now. We do not have a southern border as we speak. So we also have, it's been just a couple months since there are hundreds of thousands of Afghanis who came into this country without being checked. And just, they're here in the United States. Who knows what's going on? What are they doing? Thanks to Joe Biden and his historic failure in Afghanistan. And then, of course, the solution by the Democrats to just bring people into America, not check their backgrounds, not check whether they're a threat at all, but just release them into here. And now you're right. We've got Mexicans, Ukrainians, and Cubans at the southern border. One of those is not like the two others. So something doesn't quite make sense. But and the answer is the United States government somehow facilitating that transfer, right, of people from Ukraine to the southern border, because any other way, as an immigrant from the former Soviet Union, I will tell you that traffic, just the route does not make any sense. Don't you think?
100% no. And it's also not, you got to go to the first country of origin and come from there. Let's play. Do we have, is Memphis can play
10 seconds on that, Steve? Let's just be honest with each other.
Yeah.
That rule's been thrown out the window by this administration. That rule, that process, that's all out there. They don't care. They want to populate this country with as many illegal immigrants as possible because they know that Americans who are here illegally cannot stand the libs.
Let's go to play this cold open for Anthony Sabatini. We're going to bring in Anthony from Florida.
I'd also like to make another announcement before we get into the subject of today's program. I think, as many of you know, the Florida legislature is meeting this week to consider the congressional reapportionment plan for Florida for the next 10 years, and that is what they've been called upon to do. But I am announcing today that we are expanding the call of what they are going to be considering this week. And so, yes, they will be considering the congressional map, but they also will be considering termination of all special districts that were enacted in Florida prior to 1968, and that includes the Reedy Creek Improvement District. And I want to thank Speaker Sprowls and Senator Simpson for not only working, obviously, for the reapportionment, but for stepping up and making sure that we make the sunset or the termination on those special districts happen, which I think is very important.
I got to tell you, this is a neutron bomb right here. A sitting Republican governor is not just taking on the most powerful corporation in the state. It's a throwdown. Anthony Sabatini is going to join us now. I got Boris Epshteyn riding shotgun with me. Anthony, you were the guy that broke on this show, calling the special session back for this redistricting, which in and of itself is a huge victory. The legislature said, hey, look, upon further review, Governor Desantis, you and the MAGA movement, the America First movement, the Trump movement, the War Room Posse, you guys are right. We're wrong. Tell us what we do. Then he adds that coming back the day after Easter Monday, he comes and says, oh, by the way, since everybody's back, let's do the following. Disney's going to try to muscle the citizens of Florida. How about this? We're going to review and potentially terminate all the special deals that were cut with you back in the 1950s to actually attract you to come here to the state of Florida. They got a thing in Florida like the Medicis had in Florence. This is their own separate deal. Anthony Sabatini, this is a massive deal. I mean, Ron DeSantis is playing flat out smash mouth Anthony Sabatini.
That is exactly right, Steve. This isn't just a momentous and historic moment in the MAGA movement, but it's also one of the most important days in Florida history, I would tell you. I was driving up to Tallahassee, our state capital, today to help pass this really important congressional map that the War Room Posse and you and many others pushed to make sure happened here in the state of Florida. And I get this text and I get this email that says, hey, we're expanding the emergency legislative session and we're taking on Disney. Now, there had been a lot of speculation in the media over the last few weeks about when and if we would do it. But to see it actually come into full force and to see Governor DeSantis' bill get filed this morning is just literally of historic proportions. It is a bill that would eclipse their special taxing district, which means they have to pay taxes like everybody else. They don't get a special carve out. They don't get to live in their own little self-enclosed universe. Basically, the special Chamber of Commerce type privileges that big corporations got from Republicans for decades on end is coming to an end. And so this is really big. The next 3 days, we're going to be examining it. They're actually literally in committee right now debating it. And then tomorrow it will be on the House floor. The whole legislature will be talking about it. And then we're expecting it to pass along with the congressional maps this Thursday. And like I said, this is just so big. 1967 rolls around. Walt Disney, right before he passed away, said, hey, I think that this is something the corporation needs to see this project get lifted off the ground. It gets signed into law the next year. His brother, Roy Disney, helped usher it in. And the truth of the matter is, it might have made sense for a little bit, but guess what? Disney's turned its back on its roots. It's turned its back on families, and it turned its back on Florida. And it's time we start looking at everything that they've gained from on our backs.
By the way, you're the first guy to tell us, hey, look, the people of Florida are worked up about this. And DeSantis, you thought was going to move on something. Just walk us through. We've got about a minute and a half. The logistics here, you're saying it's in committee. You, as a member of the House, you think you'll actually see something by Thursday of this week on this Disney situation?
That's correct. They're literally debating it today in committee at this exact moment. Tomorrow it'll be on the House floor. We might see a final vote on Thursday of this week. And it would repeal this special district. Now, of course, that means taxes, too. They could see an upwards tax increase of $200 million a year, which I don't think they deserve. They don't deserve to have that tax exemption. They should be paying the same as any corporation. I would add Universal Studios is right down the road. They don't have these same privileges. And this is another famous theme park. Why does Disney have that? That tax cut should go to the middle class and the working class, our people, not them.
Anthony, how do people, I know you're running for Congress now, how do people find out more about you and about your race?
Sabatini for Congress.com and at Anthony Sabatini on all social media platforms. And I appreciate the time, Steve.
No, we appreciate what you're doing. We want to really check in with you tomorrow too. This can't be bigger. I tell you, I'm actually gobsmacked. It's hard to gobsmack me. It's just so lightning move by Desantis and the Patriots down there in Florida. Anthony, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Talk to you soon.
Boris, I'm going to take a break and I will come back. We've got to, I know we got to talk about the map and the calendar, but I got to get your thoughts on this. This is momentous. A sitting Republican governor has taken on a big multinational corporation in kind of a blitzkrieg move and said, hey, how about this? We're going to meet, we're going to go through it, and we're going to vote and take away maybe $200 million of tax breaks. Short break. Back in the battleground in a moment. Okay, welcome back. It's the 247th anniversary of Concord Bridge in Lexington Green. We're honoring those initial patriots that triggered the American Revolution by standing and fighting. Got a lot to go through in this second half of the show. Want to get to Leslie Manookian in just a second. But Boris, I got to ask you, this is absolutely stunning, and I can't tell our audience how important this is. Normally something like this, you would reach out to consultants, you would leak it in the press, you would talk about it, you say, hey, it's going to be for next session when we get back next year. DeSantis doesn't roll like that. DeSantis says, hey, how about this? I'm calling you back for a special session because you're gonna. I've heard from the War Room Posse. I've heard from the MAGA movement. I've heard from America First. I've seen these other guys roll over, like in Missouri and New Hampshire. You know, the great Sununu family rolling over up in New Hampshire. I've seen that, and we're not going to do that. We're gonna act like we're Tennessee, and we're going to get a fair map based upon the demographics based on the Senate. So I'm going to call you back in special session the day after Easter Monday. And the guys say, fine. In fact, a matter of fact, Governor, you're right. And we're going to go with that 20-8 map. That's really, as you, Boris, if you told us, probably 21-7. And then Tony, and then he says, hey, how about this? While you're in town, how about this? Let's sit there and take away the Disney. Disney's been in our grill against the parents, against this anti-groomer bill, the parent right bill. They've been, rallying all the Hollywood guys and everybody against us. How about this? We're going to take away all these tax breaks we shouldn't have given you in the first place back in the 60s. And more important, the tax breaks, your ability just to run as your own nation state like the Medicis used to do in Renaissance Italy. Boris Epshteyn, you've been around the block a couple of times. How big a deal is this?
It's a huge deal, Steve. There are two major developments today, I'd say in the last 24 hours. First, it's the strength that Governor DeSantis is coming in with on redistricting, which is a big deal. And then he's doing exactly what we said right here on the War Room. We signal, not noise for this audience. We said that, hey, go after their exemptions. They want to mess around. They want to be pro-groomers. They want to go and support this ridiculousness that's going on in our country right now. Fine. But then they've got to face the wrath, and they've got to face the reality of they're in a state with a Republican governor and a MAGA governor and a Republican legislature. And that's the reality of it. So to all those woke corporations from all across the country, the world is not Los Angeles. It's not. America is not LA. America is not Beverly Hills. Everybody isn't just over there at the Ivy eating $77 salads, okay? The American people cannot stand what is happening with grooming. They can't stand what's happening with a complete meltdown of social values in this country, and they will not put up with it. And good on Governor DeSantis for standing strong, and good on him for standing strong on redistricting. And Steve, good on you for that haircut. You're looking good.
Thank you. Let me go back to DeSantis. I mean, this is the party of Atlas Shrugged. This is the party of Paul Ryan and all the Ayn Rand devotees. They're taking on a corporation, not taking on the government, it's taking on a corporation. What say you, sir?
This is where we are now. This is the MAGA revolution at play. This is what happened, Steve, when President Donald J. Trump won that election in 2016. We threw old establishment country club, khaki, big corporate republicanism out the window. This is MAGA. This is the party and the movement of manufacturing, of American strength, of really strong social values, of believing in God, believing in our country, and believing in the American people. That's what we are now. Not these, Koch brothers, huge corporations, or like they have in that movie, The Campaign, they call them the Mog brothers, bringing Chinese cities over to America. That is not what we are anymore. MAGA, which makes up 99% of the Republican Party, which controls the Republican Party, MAGA is all about America first and standing up to anything that is fighting against American values, be it big government or be it huge woke corporations. Are we for business? Absolutely. Are we for fair business? No doubt about it. Are we for business which represents American values? Yes. But are we for businesses which try to dictate to states and legislatures how they should act? Absolutely not. So huge kudos to DeSantis for this move. And he's coming in hot, and that's what we like here at the War Room.
Okay, let's go to Leslie Manookian, founder and president of Health Freedom Defense Fund. Yesterday, blockbuster news coming from a federal judge. By the way, a young federal judge who the American Bar Association said was like unfit because she didn't have enough time in. Just a brilliant decision. Trump appointed, just a brilliant decision. Leslie, you're the one to initiate this. Walk us through exactly how you got involved in this, how you initiated this, and how America, yesterday they're showing the videos on airplanes, people are taking the mask off. The flight attendants are tearing up as they say you can take your mask off. And as everybody knows, pretty tough to get a flight attendant to tear up. Leslie, walk us through what happened yesterday.
Well, so I got into the health freedom movement almost 20 years ago after I suffered my own vaccine injury. And I ended up making a documentary on vaccines called The Greater Good, which won a bunch of awards. And the reason I'm sharing this is because fast forward to 2020, when 2020 unfolded, I could see where it was headed, and I founded Health Freedom Defense Fund because I wanted to push back, because I knew that all these different pieces of legislation had been put in place over the last 20 years to undermine our rights, our liberties, the ability for us to make decisions over ourselves. I mean, there was the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act legislation that was initiated I think it was like 6 weeks after 9/11. And then, of course, the Patriot Act came right before that, and the PrEP Act, and all these things facilitated what's happened in the last 2 years. And so I founded Health Freedom Defense Fund because I wanted to push back against what I was expecting was coming, which is exactly what's happened, which is all of these draconian measures stripping us of our individual rights, violating everything that our founding fathers held dear, and treating us like we're a bunch of animals.
So walk us through the process. How did you get this going? How did you roll? And were you surprised by the decision yesterday?
No, we were thrilled with it, but we were cautiously optimistic through the whole thing. So we were watching all these measures. We were watching people push back. We were watching, state legislatures try to take some power and preserve some freedom in some states, obviously, and in other states, it was just crazy, right? I mean, these people have been subjected to unthinkable measures in the last 2 years. And so we were contemplating what we wanted to attack. And we feel that the mask mandate is kind of the tip of the spear, essentially. And that if the CDC could force the mask mandates on us, it opened the door to further egregious intrusions into our zone of privacy that each one of us possesses around us. And that if we didn't stop the mask mandate, then we were going to get to a point where vaccine passports and other measures were going to become increasingly common, and CDC was going to get this kind of rubber stamp if it wasn't challenged. So we, as our team, started really, spitballing how we were going to approach this, and we decided we wanted to take on the CDC's travel mask mandate because we thought it was one of the clearest and most egregious oversteps. The CDC doesn't have the statutory authority to do what it did. It violated the public comment and public noticing period, and it didn't properly justify its mandates. So we felt that there was a really, really sound legal argument, a rifle shot to take this thing down. And Judge Mizell agreed with us, and so she found, in our favor. And frankly, because of those things that I mentioned, all of the violations, we were very confident that this would happen.
Walk us through. Tell us about Health Freedom Defense Fund. One of the things we love to do is highlight people like yourselves, concerned citizens that get involved, the kind of David versus Goliath. Walk us through Health Freedom Defense Fund.
Yeah, we are total David versus Goliath, but hopefully this will change that a little bit, right? It's a pretty huge win, and we have just been doing backflips here since we found out yesterday morning. We just want to embrace and support American ideals of liberty, sovereignty, bodily autonomy. And so we try and educate people about their rights because we feel that people have really lost any connection to what, the Declaration of Independence says very clearly that our rights come from our Creator, not from any government entity or any human being. And Americans seem to have forgotten this stuff. And so we are trying to educate people. We advocate for these principles, and then we litigate when necessary. And unfortunately, infringements of our rights and freedoms, in particular as they pertain to health, have become more and more common in the last 2 years. And so our fight is really on now. We won this mask mandate challenge, and we're fighting vaccine mandates across the country. We have a couple of lawsuits against the federal government, one against the federal, on behalf of over 6,000 federal employees, one on behalf of over 30,000 airline workers and transportation workers. We're suing the city, the Los Angeles Unified School District, the city of San Francisco, and we've also got one against the state of Oregon. And, we can't do this work to push back and have these truly brilliant lawyers like we have if we don't have support. So, we're just trying to preserve American values. We're trying to preserve the Founding Fathers' principles and create a fair and just system where we live under the rule of law. And if the CDC and the federal government can do what it's doing, then we don't live under the rule of law. One of the things that was written by Brant Hathaway, the lead attorney in this lawsuit, was that never before has an American president ever even deigned to issue some kind of an order dictating what people wear, or either a piece of clothing or a medical device. Never before. And yet this has happened. And there are people who actually are opposed to us, which is shocking. They're few, thankfully, but it's shocking. So we're just working as hard as we possibly can to make as big of a difference and to educate people about their rights so they're more likely to be inspired and feel empowered to stand up for them.
Leslie, when we came onto the show, I haven't seen, has DOJ stepped in? I mean, all the MSNBC and CNN are sitting there hanging, waiting for DOJ. Have they responded to your victory yet?
Well, Becerra said, I haven't seen anything out of DOJ yet. I saw that Biden was asked, what are you going to do about the mask mandate this afternoon? And he said, people should make their own choices, which I thought was very interesting. And DOJ and Becerra of HHS, he said that he thought that they might challenge it. But listen, if they do challenge it, they have a huge uphill battle against them, Steve, because there was already a court case in the Middle District. I'm not sure. It was in Florida, and it was against the cruise lines. CDC initiated a rule that the cruise lines had to require that everybody who got on their cruises that departed from Florida were vaccinated. And the state sued, and it went to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the CDC's mandate. So that's very much in our favor. Then there was the eviction moratorium, the CDC eviction moratorium, on behalf of, or telling landlords that they couldn't evict tenants during COVID. That went all the way to the Supreme Court. And you may recall that Justice Gorsuch actually opined that the Constitution isn't suspended during an emergency. So this is the same situation. This is the same kind of argument. CDC is overstepping its statutory authority, doesn't have the power to do what it's doing. We feel very confident that if DOJ even does stand up and fight this, that we will prevail in the long run because we have the law on our side.
Leslie, how do people find out more about you, more about the Health Freedom Defense Fund?
So you can follow us, all of our work, all of our lawsuits, and support us at healthfreedomdefense.org. And you can get to all of our social media if you go to healthfreedomdefense.org and follow all the work that we're doing. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can become a member for $10. There's much you can do to engage and support the mission of Health Freedom Defense Fund.
We will follow it very closely. Look forward to having you back on. Great victory. The administrative state shakes in its boots when it hears the name Health Freedom Defense Fund, ma'am. Great victory.
Can I just say one other thing, Steve? Thank you so much for having
Yes,
me.
ma'am.
But
Sure.
I can't tell you how gratifying and inspiring it was to see the hundreds of videos and photographs and hear stories from everybody I know telling me that people are cheering and dancing and crying. In fact, one of our lead attorneys was on an airplane today, and he mentioned that the guy who wrote the lawsuits, Brant Hathaway, works with him, and the flight attendant hugged him and cried. And this is why we do what we do, because I care about people and I care about children and I care about freedom. And so I just thank you for having me on and this opportunity to share the word about what we're doing.
It's a great win. And you're right. It's like a breath of fresh air, just real freedom. Thank you for doing the fight, though. David versus Goliath. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, it's the first anniversary. The first anniversary of Frank TV. It's so appropriate that it comes on Patriots Day, the real Patriots Day. I know yesterday they commemorated it in Boston, but this is the 247th anniversary of Lexington and Concord. Of course, the freedom fighters of Brandon House and Logan House, and of course the great Mike Lindell over at Frank TV. Can't thank those guys enough for being in partnership with them. Boris, I want to play Chuck Todd today. I've got to get your assessment. This is Chuck Todd of MSNBC, the chief political analyst for NBC News. Memphis, could we go ahead and play Chuck Todd?
If you got on a plane or a train, or really any form of public transportation today, you probably noticed a pretty big change. Yesterday afternoon, a Trump-appointed federal judge in Florida struck down the administration's federal mask mandate for travelers just days after the Center for Disease Control extended it through early May. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki called the ruling disappointing, but the White House has not yet appealed the ruling. They claim it's something for the Department of Justice to look into. Already the TSA, major airline carriers, Amtrak, Uber, Lyft, all others have dropped their mask requirements essentially the second the White House decided not to appeal. Folks, it's one thing for a Trump judge to strike down an order from the Biden White House, but it's an entirely different thing for the White House to let it happen without any legal pushback. And it's not the first time recently that something hasn't gone the White House's way. They don't fight back. They don't defend their rationale. They just give you the emoji shrug. We saw it when the Supreme Court struck down their vaccine mandate for large employers. We saw it when West Virginia's Joe Manchin essentially scrapped the president's entire domestic agenda in Congress. We may even be seeing it with the ongoing intra-party fight on Title 42. The Biden administration, with the full power and prestige of the presidency, with its party's power in Congress on the line this November, has repeatedly looked as if they're easy to roll.
Good God, Boris, we got about 3 minutes here. I need you to walk through that. That is the most. He's the chief political analyst. He has Tim Russell's old job at Meet the Press. He does Meet the Press Daily. He's the chief political analyst for all of NBC News. That was a brutal takedown, was it not, Mr. Boris Epshteyn?
Completely brutal. And I dealt with Chuck Todd, when we were at the White House and I was head of surrogates. Part of what I did was that before the Sunday shows, I would call all of the Sunday show hosts. So George Stephanopoulos, Chuck Todd, the host at CBS at the time, I think it was Pelly, and then, and then Chris Wallace over at Fox. So I would talk to all of them. For Chuck Todd to be so despondent, for Chuck Todd to have no interest whatsoever in defending the administration, and also, frankly, to look so exhausted in talking about this. I think it tells you exactly where the Democrats are, where the left is, and where their cheerleaders in the mainstream media are. They are done. They are done. I mean, again, Steve, we, the War Room Posse, the MAGA movement, President Trump, we've been at this since the second that Biden was inaugurated in that sham inauguration and started his illegitimate presidency. And we knew for a fact that we were going to get here, where the Biden is disrespected, where the morale among the left is absolutely cratered and where there's no future for the Democratic Party. But it looks like the Democrats and their cheerleaders in mainstream media were not prepared for it. And that's why you're getting Chuck Todd there just kind of blankly staring into the camera and saying words and being despondent. I think that's the word that describes the feeling among mainstream media and the left. Despondent, sad, pathetic.
Boris, let me have your social media and particularly how they get to your morning newsletter. We got to bounce.
No doubt about it. BorisCP.com is the newsletter. We're going to have a hot one come out tomorrow. BorisCP.com. Sign up right now. Hot on Getter at BorisCP. On Twitter at BorisCP. Truth Social at Boris. And, of course, the hottest on the gram, Boris_Epshteyn. Stay strong. God bless. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Boris, thank you very much for joining us. Look forward to having you back on here tomorrow. We're going to get to that calendar. We got to. The things kick off. 60 Days of Pain about these primaries. Okay, we're going to leave you with the Hymn of the Concord Bridge by Emerson, the poem by Emerson, and a beautiful, beautiful hymn to commemorate the monument that went there right before the Civil War. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the War Room.